extra copy of the agenda. Is there an extra copy?
I didn't see
Usually my wife says you were born in
It's now 7:00 on May 3rd. I'm calling the meeting to order. Will you all please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Ellison, please take the roll. Here.
Bill Boyd.
Here.
Abby Brooks. Here. Aaron Kinder. Here. Bill Morris.
Here.
Lynn Norris. Here.
First item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which consists of everything that's routine that will be cast in a single motion. The consent agenda includes the treasury reports that Sarah sent out and includes the approval of minutes from April 5th, April 11th, and April 18th, and amended minutes from the July 6th, 2021. We'll make a correction to attendance of the board members. So, Sarah, you want to talk a little bit about the one addition bill that we have for VCA that came in after the list was sent out?
Yeah, I just gave everybody a copy of that. That's our first, bill from Burns Clancy Associates for the sewer study plan. I just want to make sure everybody's seen that before
It was
it was paid.
Like it's
We
a
have a
total of
$14,886.64.
So that will need to be included with the bills when we go to pay the bills tonight. Approve that. Any questions on any of the minutes or any of the treasury reports, anything under consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? Any additional questions or discussion? Allison, roll call.
Joe Boyd.
Yes.
Abby Brooks. Aaron Kinder.
Yes.
Bill Morris.
Yes.
Lynn Norris. Yes.
All right, next are the reports from the village president, myself. Got quite a few bullets, and most of these are just status type things. The DCO grant that we applied for, we found out that each person that we were working with got promoted and is no longer doing that function as with DCO. And so we lost about 3 weeks of any communication with DCO. You have a new person now and have sent them what they needed to review. So hopefully within a week or so, we'll start getting word back from DCO and anything else we need to do. So we lost some time. It was due to change over in personnel within DCO. So none of our projects have changed since the last meeting. Next word, the bullet point I've got is meetings that we've had with Midward, which is the Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District, and also with Town of Normal as far as the possibility of our sewer study, including options to run our sewage through normal pipes to DNWRD, Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District. At a high level, both organizations are very receptive to working with us and doing something. We might be able to work with Normal and expand their capabilities to the north of Normal. And then possibly where the area where 51 and Normal meet in Veterans, 55, Interstate 55 in that area. And obviously, there's nothing concrete at this time, but both organizations are very receptive. And my next bullet point is sewer study status with Greg. Greg also attended both those meetings, so I'm just gonna ask Greg to kind of fill us in on the meetings and where we're at with the study.
Yes, sir. As the mayor said, we met with the Bloomington Normal Sanitary District back in April, and then coincidentally met with Town of Normal today, and I had the same gauge as the mayor did. Kathy was there today too, but they were very open, very receptive, and it was a kind of a win-win discussion, and they were almost excited to hear that Hudson was giving consideration to a sanitary sewer. From our perspective as the engineer that's evaluating options, we'll still be looking at all the various treatment options. The collections system will pretty much remain the same, but kind of on the surface right now, it seems like the collection and transport system to the Bloomington Normal area would be most likely the least cost, without even putting any numbers together, just because it is so close. They are interested in extending their systems further to the north, which means that's less that we would have to go to the south. I will be being in contact with the engineer from Normal, who will provide me information on existing pump stations and on future considerations that they're thinking about. And as the mayor said, this is very long-term, high level at this moment. I also passed out a facilities planning area map that we had received from Neil. Mayor, remind me Neil's last name, I'm sorry. Finland from Farnsworth. This map, as I was just telling Denny, is pretty dated. It's from 2001, but there's most certainly some additional information that's needs to be added to this, but this is very helpful for us because, as you can see at the very uppermost portion of the map, there is in that blue box a Hudson FPA, a facility planning area that is in existence. What that does, and I've been through this in a very negative fashion, what this does is kind of obligate the sanitary district there in Bloomington Normal to provide service to the village of Hudson. That doesn't guarantee that they're going to provide piping, but should the village be able to get its sanitary waste to them, it's part of their kind of territory that they're obligated to serve. There's also some discussion by the sanitary district on some funding grants that might be available to allow them to co-invest with some of the facilities that we're going to require. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of that.
Any of the trustees have questions? And so far, I'm real happy with how the meetings have gone with Minward and Normal. So what would you envision you telling us in a month from now as far as where we're gonna be?
So today we were discussing with the town and normal engineer who had a number of very specific, as I said, pump station locations, areas where they want to serve additionally. That whole south area, I would expect that in the next month, we will have tentative locations where a pump station would be located. And as I said at the meeting today, it is less important whether it's on this side of the garage or that side of the garage. It's more important we know the distance and what that cost is going to be. So we're going to have this kind of radius that we're going to be working within that may be 2 miles, 3 miles. And if it's anywhere in that touchable radius, the cost would be essentially the same. And then as the mayor has said, very friendly, very open, very willing to work with the village to serve not only their own needs, but the village's needs. So that will most certainly affect the cost of the facility because there will be some shared benefit there. And the other aspect of that would be that, and we have done systems both ways. Bloomington Normal Sanitary District would almost certainly be the operator of the lift station. Denny would be real excited about this up until his second week having the lift station. And lift stations are just nothing but constant maintenance. It's not every day, but it waits till a day like this. In fact, it's still too early. It has to be later tonight. And then the lift station, the pump's clogged, it kicks out. So having Bloomington Normal service the pump station would take a significant maintenance load off the village. And they would perform regular maintenance. They would be out there on a 2-week, 4-week frequency. So I think that's another very important aspect of partnering, in with that option of treatment and transport.
And if there are any questions, as Greg mentioned, we will get cost estimates for if we have our own system or if we connect to Denver. So that's part of the original scope of the work, and that's one of the EPA requirements to get prices with light. So, okay, any additional questions for Greg? Okay, thank you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
Next bullet point is Cardinal Infrastructure, the McLean County Economic Development Group, Town of Normal, and several other towns in the area have used a firm in Washington, D.C. called Cardinal Infrastructure. They are kind of a consultant or a lobbyist type role. And I have had an initial meeting with them with Zoom, and I will be having a follow-up meeting with them, requested pricing on their services, and as soon as I get that and understand it, I will share that with the board. So we are under no commitments with them whatsoever, but they come highly recommended from local governments. Kathy?
What services do they actually provide?
I will send you a link to their website. They contact you or connect you with different political offices in DC. The McLean County Economic Development Group makes a trip every year out to DC to talk to all the congressmen and the different departments that they are going to be requesting funding for, such as the EPA or Federal Housing Authority, depending on what projects are their priorities. Cardinal sets up all the meetings. They have a variety of functions that they do. And then, again, they do come highly recommended. I I've only had one discussion with them, so I hate to give you a scope or the idea that that's the scope of their work. I'm sure they do a lot more. So,
Okay, yeah, because I remember they were mentioned this afternoon and it was like,
yeah.
who are these people?
So I'll send you a link. I did put information, some information about them in an email that I sent out to the board.
Okay, if you,
Yeah.
I'll let you know if I don't have the link. I'll
Okay.
check it.
Okay. So, and I won't consent to doing anything with Cardinal until we have board approval. So, next bullet point is status of the county ARPA grant sharing. We have $65,000 from the county. And I know Denny has ordered some of our equipment. Are you still looking at the trench boxes, Denny?
Yeah, I actually talked to a different company today, about it, but the, most of the back truck parts that I had ordered, came in a week or so ago.
Okay. Good.
So,
And to be clear, the way this works is we go ahead and pay it, and as soon as we get the intergovernment agreement set up, the county will send them the bill that shows we paid for it, and they will reimburse us for big things that we asked for, so. The trench box, the accessories for the back truck, you know, a lot of tailing equipment are on our list for them. So, I guess we can go ahead with the other tailing equipment if you have room to store it. The main thing is get the trench box in, so we can work on that. I want to talk a minute about intergovernment agreements. Pat, I think I sent you a potential intergovernment agreement. Did that look fairly standard?
Yes, it did. It is consistent in scope with what I've seen in other instances. It provides liability protection that's appropriate when equipment's borrowed and clearly assesses kind of responsibility and whose insurance things fall under. And I think it's well drafted, and I had no substantive concerns on the proposed agreement. The only that I would add, which may overlap on an upcoming bullet, but the agreement is silent on imposing charges. And so, you know, you could impose those separately or do it as part of a separate agreement or, you know, supplement that. I suggested, I would suggest that there may be a challenge in supplementing that intergovernmental agreement because I know probably most municipalities in McLean County are considering it or have considered it at April, May, or June meetings. So trying to negotiate changes amongst, you know, more than a dozen other municipalities can be cumbersome from time to time. So you may decide to take the fees up separate.
Okay, thanks, Pat. And just to explain the concept of this, if Quanah gets hit by a tornado, we're gonna help them all we can, regardless of whether we have an agreement or not. This would be a situation where Lexington was working on a project, their dump truck broke, and they asked to use ours, you know, until they got theirs fixed. And then the intergovernment agreement would cover that. That would be under insurance and everything. So it would be real easy to allow them to use our dump truck. It would not cover equipment that we plan to rent for our back truck, primarily the back truck. So, because the back truck is a little unique in that it takes trained people to do it, and we won't let it out of the garage without being here to control it. So the back truck would be separate. So are there any questions on setting up an intergovernment agreement between different towns?
Yeah.
Kathy?
I went through the sample. I did not see anywhere where there would be a priority list, as in Hudson, Towanda, St. Joe, I would assume home would be priority, but it's not stated, or did I miss something in the document?
We have the right to not loan any of our equipment out. That is in here.
Yeah,
So does it need to be stated more clearly?
I don't know. That's a Pat question.
Yeah, it is purely discretionary as whether you choose to kind of loan out equipment. So there's, in my opinion, there's no duty that's created by you to loan it out. So in that instance, I'm comfortable that, you know, you're not going to end up in a circumstance where you need it and somebody asks to use it and the intergovernmental agreement's used against you that, oh, hey, you signed this agreement and we have an emergency, we need it, and we don't care that you need it for your use, we want it. It wouldn't work that way. You can say no and you're safe in your ability to do that.
Well, what about if they hit them first, we lend it out, then we get hit and we say, hey, we want our stuff back, and they're saying we're in the middle of cleanup.
Yeah, bear with me, I'm pulling it up as we're talking here.
Just plain devil's advocate here.
Pat, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah. I can. So I'm comfortable in that scenario you presented, Kathy, where you've loaned it out and you need it back due to an emergency. I think there's a carve out that covers that. There's essentially a duty to the requesting party must return the equipment provided the responding party by the time established. So the responding party is one loaning it out. There's language that later says, unless there is an emergency incurred by the responding party by which the personnel or equipment is necessary to handle such emergency, in which case a responding party may utilize the designated equipment to resolve the emergency. So actually that circumstance addressed, you loan it out, you have an emergency, you need it back, you can go take it back.
Okay. Too many respondents.
It's, you got to read it 3 times to figure out who's responding and requesting.
I guess the only question I would have, so everything in this intergovernmental is just for emergencies, correct? So even talking about renting, Denny having to go with the back trailer would only be for emergency.
The back trailer use we could decide separate from the intergovernmental agreement.
Okay.
It would be a separate thing if we decided to, rent any in the back truck out to other towns, we have to set a rate for it.
Okay. And I only bring that up, just knowing that he has to go with it and as much as we have to accomplish here.
And that's where I sent out the brush bill
Yeah.
as an example of what we would have to pay if we had, before we get the back truck.
Yeah.
So the back truck would be separate from this. This would be most of our other equipment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and we're not going to say, okay, you don't have a dump truck, so you can use ours whenever you want. We're not doing that. That's not intended to cover that. So I don't have the ordinance finalized as far as what we need to pass for me to sign an intergovernmental agreement. We'll have that agenda or our agenda next month. But the ordinance simply says that it authorizes me to sign an intergovernmental agreement. So I believe, Mark, don't we, for our police support, don't we have more or less intergovernmental agreements with the county or other towns?
Yes, we do have some intergovernmental agreements for assistance when called upon, yes.
So it's not the first for us. So. All right. Next, along with this same thing, as far as the back truck and the jetter goes, we have an ordinance right now, for a cleanup situation where we document how much we are going to charge residents if they fail to do cleanup and the village goes in and cleans up. So much an hour for the dump truck, so much an hour for the backhoe, that type of thing. Okay, so my questions are, do normally the jetter and the back truck are only going to be used on village maintained tiles and equipment? Do we want to make this equipment available on private property? And if so, would we charge or make it free of charge? And that is not something we have to decide tonight, but that's something we have to think about.
I think the back trucks is sort of a special circumstance, and we should keep that within the village responsibilities. Because, number one, we gotta have Denny operate it. Number two, if it's a private party, we're setting ourselves up basically, somebody's got a clogged drain somewhere. And they're gonna call us instead of the plumber. And then it's worst case scenario, I know, devil's advocate, yada, yada. But I basic hard construction type equipment, I guess you'd say. I don't see a problem having a word, basically translates to me as a rental.
Okay, so let's go back to your first point there, as far as keeping the back truck in Hudson. If I understood, then you would not want us to be able to rent that to other towns, is that correct? Or do you need to think about it?
I need to think about that because I'm more concerned with private citizens wanting to rent it,
Okay,
you know, on private property, than like if Tawanda needed to borrow it or rent it. That's, I need to think on that.
okay, so those are things that hopefully next month we'll have opinions on and be able to act on it and decide what we're gonna do. I'm not sure what normal going to do as far as their back trucks. We'd have to find out. Denny, do you have any contacts that you can find out?
Yeah.
Good.
I got one quick question for Pat on that one. If we were to decide to rent it and Denny to someone within the village to clean out their sump line, what are the liabilities if he does damage?
Well, that's,
That line into a house for a sump pump, there's potential you could do damage to that line inside the house. You could flood part of the basement.
yeah, that's a good point. I'd say one threshold inquiry you'd want to make first is make sure you have insurance coverage in that scenario where you're providing service on private lines for a fee to residents, simply because, you know, you don't want to end up with an uninsured claim. But yeah, there is risk of liability. The other issue you have is one, you do damage to their plumbing, their system. Second issue is and I don't know that much about your system, but you know, your cleaner head gets stuck in a pipe and now you gotta go in and dig up their lines, and is that your responsibility or theirs? And so, you know, yes, there is a risk of liability. You'd certainly want a contract that you'd have residents sign, you know, much like any similar professional, you know, if you called Roto-Rooter or some, you know, private equivalent to provide a similar service, I would expect they would have you sign an agreement that, you know, addresses any limitations on their claims against you. But I would suggest also at a minimum, maybe between now and next meeting, if it'd be possible for, you know, somebody in the office to reach out to our insurance company and just see if we have coverage. Because I would say that would end the discussion, in my opinion, from a liability management standpoint. If we don't have insurance, then you really can't do it. So if you have insurance coverage, then what you're talking about is, you know, additional exposure to claims. So.
Okay, Sarah, would you follow up with our insurance company to find out if we use the jetter on a private drain, whether or not, if there is damage, or if the jetter gets stuck and we gotta dig up the yard, does insurance cover anything? Okay, we'll do some more follow-up on that next week. Good question. Any other questions on the jetter or back truck rental stuff?
I think we originally talked when we were buying it, that one of the wins is maybe to be like a swap between another place, like not build another city, but we get their cherry picker views and then they, so that's something that seems like it might be a bigger win, is that we need a piece of it we don't have, and they want to borrow that, so that wouldn't be a cost thing, but we need to keep that maybe as an option.
I think that could be done through the intergovernmental agreement, except for the back truck. The back truck obviously takes hours of training and the damage can be done quite easily to it if you don't use it right, so. But, yeah, for the town that has a lift truck, we wanna borrow that, and we have something they wanna borrow, we could definitely just swap. So. Okay, any other questions on that topic? Now we'll move on to the budget, and I didn't know whether it should be under mine or whose area it should be under, I just want to make sure we got it on. Since our last budget meeting, there have been changes to water. I know we added, what, 1,200 or 1,400 to water?
1,400, yeah.
Go ahead.
So we added 700 to buy some software and 700 to buy an iPad. So the software is a cloud service that does mapping, that does mapping for us. You know, it'll show us where all the hydrants and all the shut-offs are and stuff. So it's a $700 a year kind of a service. For $700, we want to try it for a year and see how it does. The guys can get out in the field and see everything about the hydrants. They can update the maintenance they've done on the hydrant. They can take pictures of anything that needs to be fixed. And all this will be, able to be seen by everybody else that has the software. There's no limits to the number of users for the software. So I mean, all the employees can all have it on their phones or whatever. And everybody would be able to see updated, where the lines are and what's been fixed and what needs worked on, kind of thing. So it's kind of an attempt to get more modern infrastructure maintenance kind of software in use.
Does this map it, or?
It doesn't map, you have to put the map in kind of, really hoping whatever Greg does, we can import into this.
Translate?
Yeah.
Okay.
We asked those questions and, we got answers, and I don't know if I always believe the salesperson. Because of course, everything's possible. But so for $700, I think it's worth having it for a year, and hopefully, when Greg delivers something, we'll see if we can get that stuff in. And then just on your phone, and you just scroll it around like you do Google Maps. And you can see where all the hydrants and everything are at some point. The hydrant sheet also have to put in, Greg, I don't Greg should have the hydrants and stuff. So it just shows you whatever you put in, basically, but it's a really easy user interface. It's really easy to update and change things. It's not a write it on a piece of paper and update some spreadsheet later, because what we do now, which this doesn't work real well, it's not accessible. It's an updated live, and then everybody sees it live kind of thing. There's videos out there and stuff, if anybody wants to see the video, it's really cool. There's much more expensive software out there too, there's bigger things that do more things, cost more. So it's $700 sounds pretty cheap.
That may be something that you may want to talk to the fire department. They may be willing to co-op with you guys on that. Because with the fire department, when they respond to calls, not knowing exactly which hydrants
Yeah.
for good condition, which aren't, size of the mains, all come in to factor.
Yeah, it has all that. It has flow rates and all kinds of stuff. He talked about, working with the fire. They have a whole other app that does fire department things apparently or something. And he said those apps talk together and stuff.
So we can talk about that.
Yeah, there's cool integration things, and it really I just think $700 is so cheap. We should try it for a year and see how we do it. Maybe we don't renew it next year. We try to go with a whole other solution or something. But we need some way to. It's going to make everything more efficient as far as the employees, right? So $700 is pretty cheap to make the employees more efficient on how they can look things up to what's going on. And then it was $700 for an iPad also, so they can see it better.
Hey Joe, I was in that Zoom the other day and you were on. I was curious, when we asked you the question about creating a a report after Denny or the guys go out, and he said we'd have to get with his developers or his crew, and
Yeah.
they could print out a report for us. Why do you think we couldn't do that?
Just because their software is not real mature, probably, that's also why it's so cheap.
I kind of concerned me that they've got the, option, and he said it was free of service, but.
Yeah, those, yeah, he said it would be free, you just have to request it. Right, those are the things that I think, show up over time in software, right? I mean, he said they could add things. I mean, like, they don't wanna for free, have somebody do a report for us, right? They would like us to just do it ourselves. I mean, so it's one of those things where that will probably show up at some point, but.
I guess we can see how easy it is to get a report from,
Yeah.
It'd be nice once we go out and look at all the meters and the shut-offs and, the mains and stuff to get that report quickly.
Yeah, Phil's talking about when you say, I need to fix this on this one, this and this and this, to get one report that has all the stuff you have to fix, right? That's what he asked about. He said, yes, it's possible. We have to ask them to send it to us. So the software is just missing some features that they show up eventually. If they show up to the price, probably goes up, right? Next year, this could cost $1,400, right?
Yeah.
It's a cloud service, so. But for this price, it's a good learning experience on how to do things, I think. Any more questions, objections? Thanks.
Sarah, were there any other changes made to the budget? Okay, and everybody realizes the price of gasoline as well as the price for heating our buildings is gonna go up significantly next year, or starting soon. Do you recall, what did we raise our fuel? What, 50%? Just ballpark?
Ballpark, that sounds about right, what we did there on the fuel, we probably about 50%.
Yes.
I would say.
So do you recall if we raised any of the heating
We
expenditures?
did not, I don't
think,
no, not 50% for sure.
So our heating for all of our buildings is probably what, 5,000 a year?
Ballpark, I mean,
Yeah, I don't have that right.
Ballpark, you
Yeah.
don't have to add it up, so. If we go over on those expenses, we're looking at a couple $1,000. So, not major, I don't have the printed budget here in front of me, so. Okay, well, it's under a lot of different areas,
Yeah.
because each department's gonna have its own heating costs.
Yeah.
Rather than look through it and see what they all are. Does anybody have any other discussions or questions or comments on the budget? Budget would be the last working budget that we had at our last budget meeting. It sets a good blueprint for what we want to try and accomplish next year. And we are getting, I think we're making good progress in getting our costs in line. So, if there are no additional questions or discussions, we need to approve the budget sometime in May. So I'll look for a motion to approve it. Kathy?
I think we should on the first budget up those fuel.
Of the fuel.
Yeah, because we're already past double what we had budgeted last year.
Okay. So how many dollars is budgeted now? 5,500?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm thinking
We're
75.
actually under in fuel, we're using
I'm in the
double.
police, I'm in the police because they use the majority of the gas.
Yeah, you're saying that we're double
Double
that
that,
though?
though?
I'm saying last year it was, the budget was 2,000. And, well, am I reading this backward?
Yeah, it's gotta be. Where is it? Gas and oil.
I've got
So yeah, so
two-
this year we've used $2,055
Okay,
and 34 cents up to 5,500.
Never mind, I've got it
Yeah,
backwards.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was budgeted for two.
less than.
Okay,
Should be
should be
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to rush, so if you have questions or you wanna think about something, let me
No,
know.
I misunderstood what I was reading. Two numbers, little slash.
So are we ready to move ahead then? And if somebody wants to make a motion to approve the budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for this fiscal year 23.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any last discussions? If not, Allison, roll call?
Joe Boyd.
Yes.
Kathy Brooks.
Yes.
Aaron Kinder.
Yes.
Bill Morris.
Yes.
Lynn Norris. Yes.
Sarah, will you email me a copy of the final budget?
All right, thank you everyone for that. The next bullet point is the financial status report that I've been working on with Sarah. We're still working on that. We found a different way to try and calculate end-of-year profit, end-of-year reserves. We don't know what is best to put on there, so we'll be working with the auditor on that. So hopefully sometime this month we'll have that finalized. So I think the trustees know, and so everyone in the audience knows, Steve King, our trustee, has had to resign. He will be moving or has moved. Steve, I'm glad to see you tonight. We are still looking for a replacement trustee, so if anyone on the board or the planning commission, or if anybody in the audience has any suggestions on a new trustee for the board, please let me know. The term would be until our next election, which is, I believe, next April, isn't it, Allison, next year?
Maybe.
Okay, yeah, maybe,
23.
yeah, so would be for a terribly long term, but I would hope that any replacement we have would be interested in staying on the board and running for a trustee position then at our next election. So if you have names, please let me know. Next, I did want to let the board know that our ARPA expenditures, which were the back truck, and the camera and supplies, instead of having to detail all the different expenses for the federal government documentation, we found out we could use what they call a standard allowance and basically do a one-click type thing and submit our reports rather than detailing all the details. So it worked quite well, and we should be able to do it again next year. The standard allowance can be claimed for any government unit that gets either less than $10 million or $11 million. And so our poultry sum didn't come close to exceeding the standard deduction. So not that it's paltry for us, it's a great amount for us, but it made our documentation simpler. Next bullet point is the Clear House. That is the historic brick house that's by the ballpark. About 5 or 6 years ago, the history committee came to the village and said the building is starting to fall apart, needs some serious attention. We got an estimate of the amount of work that was needed at that time, and it was $8,500. We started putting money in reserves, and we got up to $5,500 in the reserve account. And since that time, it was decided between History Club and the village that we would not do all of the work that was originally going to be part of the $8,500. Instead, the building's been tuck pointed, a lot of the molding has been taken out, and it's been not molding, but it's been redone. Some of the bricks have been replaced, and the back half of the building has been covered. And so we were able to get all the work done that we need done for $2,000. It's being paid for out of the reserve fund that we had set up 4 or 5 years ago. So the courthouse will, again, it'll be fixed up, it'll be sealed as soon as what we've got on there cures and everything settles. So it will be fixed up and we will be able to close out that reserve account during the next year. History Club is happy, the work is getting done and it's gonna look a lot better. It was really rugged in the past. I think they've had to replace at least 30 of the bricks so far. That just kind of fell apart, so when they took the mortar out. So we are making progress and hopefully within, by the end of May, everything will be done. So does anyone have any question on any of my reports? Now we'll move on to water, public property, streets and zoning. Danny?
Water usage, 2.6 million, 87,000 a day. So, usage has been up a little bit lately with, the farm spraying and stuff, but I still think that at 8,700, we'll have to see when, we read the meters again the next time. The usage still seems to be low and probably most likely in check. I've had some questions about the status of 411 South McLean Street. This is maybe a little bit of a, Pat could chime in on some of this, but to give you a status update on that, I kind of looked over the agreement. By the end of January, the landscape was supposed to be cleaned up, and I'm gonna say that's done for the most part. The end of May, on the original agreement, the roof was supposed to be completed. That's not really done. Exterior, end of June, and all mold by the end of July. Well, the current owner is taking the route of more of a, take it down until we get to something usable and then build it back type attitude. So I'm not sure that the roof is going to be replaced by the end of this month, and or the exterior is going to be all closed up by the end of this month. So my question to you guys and maybe to Pat as well is, do we need to contact him again, remind him of his obligation to this? And since this seems to be, the initial agreement seems to be a little bit different route than he's taking right now, how do you want me or us to handle that? Pat, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, if he, so I don't think it'd be a bad idea to reach out and contact him. And I know you mentioned he's generally in compliance with the deadlines that have come, but doesn't appear on track to meet the deadlines yet to come. And this one, just general question, is it, no, he's going a different path on work. Does he appear to be working diligently at just taking more effort and time than he seemed to have anticipated, or is it sporadic progress even on, do you have a read on that, Denny?
I would say in December, January, February, early March, he was working on there a day or two or more each week. And I would say since the weather has got somewhat better into April, he's disappeared.
That would be my recommendation, that we, unless the board has, I mean, if he was working diligently and it taking longer because he's doing more work than he thought and working towards a better finished product, and that may justify some, mutually agreeable negotiated amendment to the original compliance agreement. But since it's a lack of attention, I think just a reminder letter at this point saying, here are your obligations, and Bill intends to hold you accountable to those. I can send to his attorney and to him, and I think that'd be appropriate at this point. I don't think you could do much more at this stage until he's out of compliance with the agreement, not just likely to be out of compliance.
Yeah. I would say he was working very hard and quickly when he was there. So anyway, I just wanted to give a status on that. had several, volunteer people approach me, and I've kind of compiled a list. Kathy knows some of those, and Aaron knows some of those, and, so per my understanding before, they'll come to me and get a list of things that are appropriate to do, and I'll have a trustee sign off on that, and then we'll get that done. So look forward to being able to get some help on some things for that. Also hoping that we get to spring or something sometime soon here and stop having 40-degree rainy days, so I can start doing some of the projects outside. It sounds like on the county money, Dave, is that not final approval on that to go ahead and get everything, or?
You can go ahead and order everything that we had on the list for that. That part has been approved. The only thing to be done yet is the county wants us to sign some type of intergovernmental agreement with them. So
all the drainage equipment, all the tile inlets and stuff that I would need as I place that, I can move on that, so.
yes, you can move on.
Okay, and you kind of talked on the grant, or the DCO one. And then, just to let you guys know that, the batter box stuff that Aaron had ordered has come in, and, again, it's high on my list, hopefully to get done before the season gets going too much here. But again, it's kind of hard to do when it's raining and, so forth, so that, I believe most of what I have.
Okay, so for the house on 411 South McLean, are we sending a letter to the homeowner or contacting them somehow?
I can give him a call and just remind him his next deadline is coming at the end of this month,
Okay,
and see how he responds, unless Pat would advise that we send him written notice.
Well, I'm fine with Denny reaching out to him. It's not a legal obligation. We give him the courtesy notice, so I'm fine with Denny handling it.
okay, and I would suggest that if it's okay with Pat, during that call, ask him that if he feels he isn't going to make those deadlines, that he tells you now. Is that okay to ask that?
Yes, I'm fine with that. Yep.
Okay. Let Kathy and me know how that call goes. Anybody have any questions for Danny? Thank you, Danny. Next on our agenda is our village marshal, Mark Cuddy.
We held our first golf cart registration event up here in April, and it was a good success. We had 11 people come out, register their golf carts. We had hot dogs and chips and stuff for people to drink, so they could kind of intermingle with us and everything. So it was the first annual one. Hopefully next year we'll have even more people that show up for that event. Of course, people can register the golf carts anytime. If they didn't make that event, they can just call us, set up a time, they can come up and get the registrations. We continue to provide extra patrol on North and South Broadway for speeders, as based upon complaints and past experiences. We do monitor the intersection at Havens and East Street. There's a four-way stop there. We monitor that based upon complaints of people not stopping at the stop sign and also violating the school bus stop arm, because that is a school bus drop-off point. We have not seen any violations of that nature, but we continue to monitor that as we do. Attended the World Chiefs meeting that we have. I continue to attend the EMA and EOC meetings. I attended additional meetings, if you recall, the county-wide report writing system for criminal reports jail intakes, and also for the state's attorney case management systems are all being redone. And we're finishing up what we want to put in our RFP to different vendors. So I attend those meetings as a representative of the Rural Chiefs Association. And then lastly, Chris and I both assisted the Illinois Attorney General's office with executing a search warrant for a residence of Hudson based upon an investigation done by the Illinois Attorney General's office. So we were assisting them. That's my report. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Next on our agenda is our Civil Defense Director, Jeff Thomas, and Jeff is at the fire meeting, I'm sure, being the fire chief. I know some of the sirens went off today. Do we think all the sirens went off?
I heard them.
Okay, so we think those are good. We had a meeting last year with Joe, Michael Grady of the township, Jeff Thomas, and myself to discuss where, and Danny was there, discuss where we're at with progress on water documentation and hydrant testing and everything. And it's been a year, so I'm gonna check with Danny and Mike, Joe, and see if we can find another date for another meeting set up. We'll include you in that meeting too. Just a communication type thing to keep everybody in the loop on where we're at with everything. So I will get that in the works.
Dave, I think, as Joe was kind of talking and Aaron mentioned, that if we do get this program up and running and it's unlimited users, I believe we should be able to give the fire department our information on that, and they would be able to click on any of the hydrants once we have all that inputted into the system and see the last time it was operated, what the pressure was, when it was painted, any of that kind of information. So they would be able to pull that up on, you know, if they had all that information on any of their iPhones or iPads or computer systems. So
Awesome. Okay, is it premature to have a meeting, or can we just go ahead and have a meeting and at least explain what we're looking at? Let's go ahead and have it up to date. We need another one in a couple of months to do that. Okay. Next on our agenda is the citizens hearing portion of our meeting. If needed, we do have a 5-minute time limit on any of the discussions that our citizens have. Danny, can you bring that sheet? We have tonight. Allison, would you read the first name?
Steve King.
Hello, I know you know me. So we've discussed a lot of problems. I live at 211 South East Street. It's at the corner of East and Pearl. When we get rain like we have right now, all the water drains into my backyard, the entire block. I purchased a home in 2019. There's no water issues disclosed when I purchased the home. So the first time we had this issue was February of 2020. Like I said, basically, we're the low point in the block. So everything will drain down to us. When it drains down there, toilets can't be used. There's no drainage available. I talked at the time, Jeff was on board. Jeff said it's not a village issue. I talked to Ken Koontz for the septic. My septic system is not that old, so everything's functional. I have a sump pump that's draining. I just can't drain. I can't pump the whole entire block's water off my property. One of his way to resolve the issue was put a French drain all the way across the back of my property and all the way up the west side. But then putting a sump in the yard, but where would I pump it? Because East Street doesn't have any drainage. So there's really nowhere to pump the water off my property. I've talked with Denny several times about it, and we've
he's come up with solutions, running drains up, East Street, or up Pearl Street, parts of Washington and partially between the easement between my property, Mark, I believe is talking after me. So for 2 years, I've been told that, you know, what the solution of it is, and he knows the problem, but says that there's no money in the budget to be able to fix this. I've sat on the board for a year and approved multiple amounts of money of stuff that's not on the budget every month. So it's very frustrating trying to resolve this. I know of at least 3 properties that it affects. Mark's gonna talk about more. He mentioned some more that he has knowledge of. And as you talked earlier, I resigned and I'm getting ready to move. And with the move, I have to disclose that we have water issues, but there's nothing I can do about it because I have a fully working septic system, fully working sump pump, leach field, everything. The issue is the water from the entire block. So I'm just trying to find out, is the village going to do anything about this multitude of water issues? And so, when?
Danny, how high is that property or that work on your list? They're in the top 3?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, and we did start digging there, I believe it was last fall, wasn't it?
But that was not true, that's not issue on my, I mean, that's an issue of
A similar.
similar, but not, will not resolve my issue on that side.
Okay,
It's
so
on the other
the
side of
work
the
we
street.
did last fall is
There's
not
nothing that's
for
gonna
your
happen.
issue. Okay, my misunderstanding.
So,
Okay, so when I asked for the top 3, which you're working on is the ditch on Pearl Street.
That part there is definitely in the top 3. In order to, some of the solutions that I mentioned to Steve earlier were to install lines on Pearl Street and possibly up the alley. And that was, I mean, that's gonna all be dependent upon getting money and installing new lines and inlets, which, as I just asked you, it sounds like that the county money is now approved to do that. So that is now a realistic thing to accomplish.
Okay, so the lines that you're looking at installing would drain into the ditch on Pearl Street? Is that?
Would be, my thought would be, and some of the stuff I've talked to Pat about, the drainage engineer, not the attorney, Pat, about installing inlets, surface inlets that in the ditches, which right now there is not any of those anywhere there. It all has to run down Washington Street, then to Pearl Street, all in front of Steve's yard before it can then go under the road to the Pearl Street ditch, which where I have dug open. So there's no tile on the east side of Washington Street up near the top side of the block, that Steve is on the bottom side of the block, and there's no tile on Pearl Street that catches any of that water. And as Steve mentioned, is exactly right. He's the block is tilted that he is, all of it has to run, all the surface water has to run on to his property before it can cross East Street and go into that Pearl Street ditch. So my hope was to be able to put inlets and piping in the alley and on Washington Street and at Washington and Pearl to try to catch as much of the surface water and get it in the pipes and in the ground and back toward the basin into the larger tile, rather than it running across the surface of the ground. And so now I can, now, as we've just hit into May, I can use some of the MFT money that just got approved for the specific use of inlets and piping, as well as that county grant is for. as well.
Okay, so do we have all the funding approved to do what you want to do for?
If you're telling me I can spend the items that we talked about with the county money, and now that I have the MFT, yes, I can purchase those things and get that extremely high on the list.
So if we order that soon, when are we gonna be able to start? I'm trying to get, not pinning you down to a date, but I'm trying to answer this
The
question.
weather's gonna be a lot, like right now, I mean,
I can't do
you
it.
can't do anything. And with the forecast, the way it is, right, I can't use anything right now. Tomorrow may drain out, probably not, and then it's gonna rain Thursday and Friday, so best case scenario, I'm not gonna be able to use any of my water in my house until Sunday or Monday next week. So, and it's been like this for 2 years, when I brought it up at some times, and pretty frustrating when other things, pretty less. I guess I feel importance or not affecting anybody or the care of their house gets put in front of and spent and done through this village. So I just need something, and I need something to be able to give to the realtor to put on the paperwork that something will be resolved, so I don't lose thousands of dollars on the house. Because
Okay, so is our discussion tonight enough information for you to
I don't know.
supply to the realtor?
I'll need something saying there's some sort of commitment, saying that it's gonna be done.
Okay,
Can you have the realtor contact us to
yeah,
discuss that?
maybe realtor, yeah, they can contact me directly, I'll work on a document with Denny and with Kathy as far as zoning and Phil, I guess, as far as streets go, because that's what the ditching would be. Yeah, it's more ditching than zoning, so. So have your realtor contact me.
Yep.
And we'll try and put something together for it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Allison, who's next on the list?
Mark Durbin.
We need your name and address.
My name is Mark Durbin, as you said, I live at 208 South Washington Street. And 4H is where Steve lives. He lives, I'm facing this way, back west, runs right behind me and down about two feet. So he's getting a lot of this. But I would like to iterate that it's not just a Steve King issue. This has been going on for a long time. I've lived here for 11 years, and when I had my initial sewer inspection, they passed the sewer and said the sewer is in pretty good shape, but there's indications that you had solids above the grate, which means that the groundwater has come up past the grate in my sewer and lifted that up and outside of the sewer tank. So we knew that there was a problem. And since then, I have had several sump pumps go out because it's working overtime. I mean, it's working every day. Something's pumping out of and it's moving a 6-inch, 12-inch groove right down the drain by the amount of the water that's come out. And I'm on sump pump number 4. When the first one came out and went down, I was like, something's wrong. It doesn't, something's wrong. It's raining a lot and I don't see it pumping out. I don't know why something's wrong. And so I lifted up my floor grate and the water was just a few inches from the joist. I have just a crawl space in my house, not a basement. So I just, a couple of inches down. So this was a scary thing because that's not a swimming pool building here. This thing could just bust out and my house could just come right back down again. So we had a panic situation where I had to dump that out really fast. And since then, we've watched extremely closely because of what's going on. I have hired people to come in. I've had 20,000 tons of dirt put into my house, so it slants down away from the house to try to keep the water from coming in, because there was indications of that happening. I've had to bust out my entire front porch and replace it because water was going underneath it, underneath my house, and the porch was settling down. We tried to plug that so we could keep the water out. I've also had people underneath my house fixing where it's settling, because there's so much water in the house that my foundation is settling down, and I've had joisted up, and that was several $1,000s. So what I'm trying to say to you is we've done what we can as individuals to correct this problem. And Steve did mention across the street, Jason has a lot of problems as well. He's pretty much on the same line that Steve is. And across the street from me is Andy and Dawn, and they have a basement that fills up with water every time that it rains significantly, and they've complained about it having to go down to wetbacks and get all that cleaned up. In spite of the fact that they do have a working sump pump system, but they have to do this in addition to try to keep that basement dry. So it's that whole area. It's not just Steve King's area. But I guess what we found out is that there's really a lack of drainage tile there. And I didn't even know where the drainage tile was. I've talked to Denny about it a long time. Where is this tile? And we don't even know. And it turned out I don't think there was any at all. So we desperately need something that'll drain that side of the city and in and out to try to keep that water out. And I'm here to support Steve and what he's saying to you.
Thank you, Mark.
Dennis Tipsworth.
Thank you very much for your time. Dennis Tipsworth, 1520 Grove Lane in Metamora, Illinois. I wanted to take a couple minutes to introduce myself to the board. I'm seeking the Republican nomination for the Illinois House of Representatives in the 105th District. You are in the 105th District. A little bit about the district first. It's a new district. I don't know if you've kept up at this point yet, but it is a census year. It's the first election after the census, so all new maps are drawn. So you're now in the 105th district. I'm not sure who your rep was before. It may have been Tom Bennett, or it may have been Dan Brady. I'm not sure. Dan Brady? Okay. So there's no incumbent this time. So Dan is not running for the 105th. He's seeking another office. The border now for you is right out here on 39. So anything on the east side of 39 is in the 105th. Anything on the other side is the 91st. A little bit about me now. I'm a Woodford County resident, born and raised. Still live there in rural Metamora. I went to Western Illinois University after graduating high school, where I met my wife Betsy. We've been married 28 years, and I attained my Bachelor's of Science degree in Law Enforcement Administration. I've been a police officer for 28 years, I guess now. The last 8 years, I've been the chief deputy for the Woodford County Sheriff's Office, just right across the way there. And Betsy and I have been small business owners our entire life. So we owned and operated a parking lot maintenance business that turned into kind of a light highway maintenance business. We had street sweepers, parking lot striping, anything to do with parking lots, paving, seal coating, things like that. So my background, I've got a broad background for going to Springfield. I know what it's like to try to run a business in Illinois with the ever-changing regulations and the tax burden that small business owners face every day. You know, when you look at corporate income tax in Illinois, along with federal corporate tax, you know, we're one of the highest corporate tax states for business. So it's no wonder why we lost almost 120,000 people last year out of our state. And all of us were left here to pay more taxes because they expect the same thing. So anyway, I've got a strong law enforcement background. There's a lot being talked about in law enforcement these days. With the passage of the Safety Act last year, that's I'm sure hampered your department here. I know it's hampered our department. We've had deputies leave in droves for private sector jobs, getting out of law enforcement altogether. So it's made it really difficult for us to continue hiring quality people and keeping our community safe. And there's some drastic steps coming here over the next couple of years too, as part of the Safety Act. So that's about me. Like I said, I'm seeking this Republican nomination, and I will hang around after the meeting if anyone wants to talk to me about anything, any of my positions. And I've got some literature I'd like to pass on to you if you're interested. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming. Good luck.
Thank you.
Allison, is there anybody else?
No.
Okay. We are done then with the citizens hearing. Next we move on to the standing committees. Finance, budget, contracts, and employees.
We do not have anything tonight.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Next to the streets, Phil.
I have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Next to the ordinance zoning, Kathy.
Always neat. Okay, first I'm gonna ask that the planning commission get their report on their public meetings for the solar ordinance.
I'm Doug White, of Planning Commission. We had our 6 PM meeting to gather information, comments, and so forth on the solar ordinance that has been drafted on behalf of the village. And after various comments, the Planning Commission recommends acceptance of the solar ordinance as currently presented, and would recommend board passage of that. I don't know what the ordinance number would be, but the Planning Commission recommends acceptance of that ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Doug or the planning commission? Okay, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Lori and Ellen.
Okay, second item is to review and vote on the solar power ordinance. I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to pass the proposed solar ordinance. Do we have any questions or discussions among the trustees? Okay, if not, Allison, roll call?
That's 1360.
1360?
Yep.
Thank you.
Joe Boyd?
Yes.
Kathy Brooks?
Yes.
Aaron Kinder?
Yes.
Bill Morris?
Yes.
Lynn Norris?
Yes.
Okay, and I do want to thank Pat for her help in putting that ordinance together. Thank you, Pat. Okay, Kathy?
Okay, this is difficult. I'm going to read a statement. I find myself standing on both sides of the fence regarding the Prairie View HOA. On one side, as a resident of the subdivision and a non-member of the HOA. On the other side, as a trustee of the village of Hudson with the responsibility to all residents of our community. The Board of Trustees voted in May of 2021 to give the Prairie View HOA $1,500 of TIF funds for an analysis of their tertiary system with a stated goal to lower the maintenance requirements of the IETA. As such, I am asking the board to request the Prairie View HOA to provide a report of the results of this analysis. The board needs this information to determine if the TIF funds were appropriately used. Since I do not know what the fiscal year is for the HOA, I would suggest that the board ask for 2 years of itemized financial statements due to the fact below. The analysis for the invoice that was submitted was completed in May of 2021, but the invoice was not paid until May of 2022. The reason I'm making this statement is because I have a conflict of interest. And as such, I'm putting this to the board to run with, basically.
Okay, so Bill was paid,
Yeah.
and Bill was the amount that we gave the
Yes.
HOA. So that's not an issue, other than it took a year to get it paid.
No, well, that's one of the issues. The other issue is they never reported to the board what the result of that analysis
Okay,
was.
so we need a report on that. I will ask Steve to get that.
And basically, that just hit my last slide.
Basically, that what, Kathy?
The last two items on my agenda.
You missed the tip items, hold it.
That was the.
Okay, that was the tip item, okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Kathy? Not, we'll move on to water, Joe.
We have a recent request, so the Sun Ag folks already sell water. Chemicals, right, to sell to farmers. So the next door neighbors here, Stone Seed, want to start doing the same thing, possibly, they're figuring out what they want to do, I think. And they're asking Denny about it. It would involve running a 2-inch main from somewhere probably in our backyard here over to them. And, you know, typically for like a house, right, you know, we know what we build, we have rules for, we're gonna bill you, you know, from here to here and stuff. For this particular thing, you know, someone would be on our property, I would think we'd ask them to pay for everything. I don't know if anybody has any comments tonight, or they can email me later or whatever. It would involve renting some fancy machine that would keep us from having to shut off water to places. And it, you know, drills a hole in the pipe and puts all the equipment on without having to do it, you know, have like an outage. So it would require all that and running the pipe and then, you know, getting them a 2-inch meter and all that stuff. And just in general, does anyone have objections to having another business sell water? It's kind of that they need water to mix with the chemicals, I guess, right? So it's a good thing. We do make money on the water per gallon we sell. I ran into my head for a minute, you know, do we want to charge them more because it's a commercial thing? But we're already making money on it, so if they use it a lot, you know, we continue to make money, I guess. So I don't know that it needs to be a different rate or anything. I don't think it's a different rate for SunAg, is it, for their commercial? Or is it a different rate?
It might be, we have to look at that.
Oh, is it higher or lower for commercial?
I don't know. They're a commercial rate, I believe, versus a
Okay.
residential rate.
Okay, so it would be a different rate. But it's something that we already have one business doing. This is the second business wanting to do it. So I guess my comment is just if you have any thoughts on it or objections, you can either say something here or email me. Then we're gonna have to continue talking to them, I guess, and decide what, that would be to decide what we bill them. I would think we bill them for all the work and not like us take the cost of this part on our property, right? That would be the question is, you know, do we pay for the part that's on our property, just make them pay for the pipe that's on theirs? Since this is a special thing, I doubt it's that much money to the general. You know, I think it's thousands of dollars. And if they're gonna make money off of it at the end, I would think they could make it back, so. Any thoughts, questions?
My first question would be, do we have any idea how much they would use? And does the city of Bloomington have any concerns if we would add that much, start using that much additional a month?
Their intent, over here was just to be able to broaden their services to provide to their customers. And as SunAg is the only commercial bulk water sales in town that they wanted to possibly partake in that too. And their question to me was, first off, would we be able to do that? And my response was, yeah, for a price, I'm sure we can find a way to get you. They currently have a residential 3/4 copper line over there. And so his question was, could we get an actual sizable main, which I would suggest 2-inch would be plenty. I believe that's what SunAg says. And so their question also was, is whose responsibility is it for the cost to do this? Is the village have an obligation to provide everybody with a certain level of water? And I would say yes, as we do that, but as we do new service lines, all the cost is we do the work on our property, the right of way, and we charge them for all the work and parts needed to get to their property line, and then at that point, a shut off is installed, and then from that point on is their responsibility 100%. So my thought, as far as your question of is the demand toward the city of Bloomington going to be a lot more? No, this is going to be a very slow, gradual. The farmers in the area now that use water themselves are all going here to SunAg, and I think their hopes is to be able to offer an alternative solution. I wouldn't say that they're going to immediately drastically increase the demand. And he's not sure exactly 100% of the direction he wants to go. He just was more wanting to know, can we do that? What would the cost be? Would he have to bear all the cost? Would he have to hire somebody to do all the work?
and all that kind of stuff. So I just was wanting to bring that to attention. My thought would be to handle it very similar to the way we handle residents. We would put that in and then we would charge that.
And Denny was explaining why it doesn't quite work like the residences, because we don't have a big main running down the street, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's
So we can't just charge them the park from our main to them, we gotta run something across our property to even get there.
So
It's a
that's
special
the,
thing.
that's the odd thing. There's no main on Front Street. How they get their water now is tapped into, main right here by the water tower, run across the back of the police station and over to their property. The next closest main is, on the south side of Franklin Street. So that would involve being in the township, asphalt, and then in the middle of the creek and all that kind of stuff, so that's not a very desirable location to, here is much closer, and so anyway, that's it. Normally, would there be a main on Front Street that would just come straight into their building, but there's no main on Front Street.
Bill, do you recall, didn't the Hudson Marine put in a bigger line a number of years ago, pay for it?
That was gas.
Was it a gas line?
Yes.
Okay.
A high pressure gas line, they paid for an upgrade to that from out by the cemetery into town and to them because they got some new dryers.
Okay.
I guess the one question I would have to this is, you brought up Sunag and you're bringing up them, so they mix chemical with this water? Is that- Do you know, does Sunag have an RPZ in place?
Yeah.
And it's something that they have inspected yearly and turn it, okay. That was gonna be my only question to it, if they're connected up to mixed chemical, that they have one in place.
I think this is like an EPA regulation kind of thing, selling these chemicals, right? So I think there's plenty of regulations.
Well, the RPZ is just to protect us, it protects anything from going back into our system.
Backflow protection. They have that over there and they give us and they give me an inspection report and they also keep it posted up over here in the office. So again, he's not 100% sure what he wants to do. He may not want to ever sell chemicals at all, just sell bulk water. Just something, an idea he was asking if that was a hard, fast no, we're not gonna do it, period.
Okay, so everybody let us know if there's any reason we shouldn't do it, otherwise I would think we would do it. Someone's already doing it in town, competition's good, and it wouldn't be a cost to the city, we make them pay for the whole thing. So, I mean, they're literally next door, so it shouldn't cost too much. So let me know if anybody has.
So they would be paying for the upgrade on our property also.
I think so, because the whole thing would be just for them, it's not like if we go down the block with somebody else further down, so we should pay for it, just something. It's all specific to them, so even the corner on our property, I think we have to pay, like I say, it's next door, so it's not gonna be far.
I agree.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Joe, do you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Next is public property, Aaron.
Mayor, one of the things that's very likely to occur with that would be a construction permit from IEPA for an extension of a 2-inch line. EPA might require a line a little bit larger than that. They're reluctant to give permits for a 2-inch line. So maybe keep that in mind when to the permit, the pricing for the engineering involved for a permit and drawings to get the permit. And then the possibility of having to go to a larger line just because EPA doesn't really care for 2-inch lines even for a service. We went through that here recently for a library that wasn't going to use very much water. Well, we had to put in a 3-inch line.
Thank you.
Okay.
No. 3-inch line for a what?
But isn't it correct, it depends on how you term that, whether it's a service or main?
But once you start putting in a large enough line, they still consider it a water main as opposed to a service line.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and we argued hard on that 3-inch line because water quality. In this instance, they'd be using enough water to justify even a 3-inch. And I would echo Aaron's response on backfill prevention. That's extremely important in those situations.
Great. Okay, Aaron?
I had no report for tonight.
Okay, liquor commissioner, there is no report. We have nothing on the agenda to move into closed session. So, do any of the trustees have any additional business for our meeting tonight? If not, look to adjourn the meeting. Will somebody make that motion? Motion to adjourn? Do we have a second? Second. Roll call.
Bill Boyd.
Yes.
Kathy Burns.
Yes.
Yes.
Bill Morris.
Yes.
Red Norris.
Yes.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I want to thank the planning commission for their extra meeting and for helping us out with the solar ordinance. So thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Do you want me to go up there and hoist stuff up now, or do you want to do that tomorrow?
I think we can do it tomorrow. If we can just take the tables and stack them up against the wall. We could go ahead and put the chairs, some chairs over there. Yeah, and that way we'll